Title: The Prideful Queen. In a small African village nestled deep within the vibrant greenery of the jungle, there lived a woman named Akoswa. Akoswa was known far and wide as the wealthiest and most influential woman in the land. She possessed a beauty that dazzled even the sun and a charm that could bend any man to her will. But beneath her mesmerizing exterior lay a heart consumed by pride and arrogance. Akoswa's wealth and power were unmatched. She owned fields of golden wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see, her cattle grazed on lush pastures, and her slaves worked tirelessly to fulfill her every whim. The king himself sought her counsel on matters of the kingdom, and the villagers whispered in awe of her grandeur. But despite her riches and accomplishments, Akoswa's pride knew no bounds. She strutted through the village square with an air of superiority, looking down upon the villagers as if they were mere insects beneath her feet. The king, captivated by her beauty and wealth, bowed to her every demand, allowing her to influence his decisions and control the fate of the kingdom. However, the people of the village began to grow weary of Akoswa's arrogance. They whispered among themselves, sharing tales of her haughty behavior and the tyranny she inflicted upon them. The once vibrant village began to wither under her reign, the fields lying fallow, the cattle growing weak, and the villagers struggling under the weight of her oppressive rule. But Akoswa remained oblivious to their suffering, her pride blinding her to the chaos she had wrought. She reveled in her power, relishing the adoration of the king and the fear of the villagers. She believed herself invincible, untouchable, a queen among mere mortals. However, fate had other plans for Akoswa. One fateful night, as she lay nestled in her opulent bed, a mysterious figure appeared before her. It was an ancient crone, her eyes gleaming with wisdom and age-old knowledge. She spoke in a voice that seemed to echo through the very fabric of time. "O prideful queen, your arrogance has led you astray," the crone intoned. "You have wielded your power like a sword, cutting down all who oppose you. But beware, for pride always comes before a fall." Akoswa scoffed at the crone's words, dismissing her as a mere old woman peddling foolish superstitions. But as the night wore on, a strange feeling crept over her, a sense of unease that gnawed at the edges of her pride. She tossed and turned in her bed, unable to shake off the crone's words that lingered like a dark cloud over her consciousness. Days turned into weeks, and Akoswa's once unshakable confidence began to falter. The villagers, emboldened by the words of the crone, started to murmur in defiance, their whispers growing louder with each passing day. The king, too, began to question her commands, no longer bowing to her every whim as he once did. But Akoswa refused to heed the warnings of the crone. She clung to her pride like a shield, unwilling to admit that she had overreached, that her power was not absolute. She continued to rule with an iron fist, crushing any signs of dissent with ruthless efficiency. However, the wheels of fate were already in motion, and Akoswa's downfall was imminent. One fateful night, as a storm raged outside, the villagers gathered in secret, their faces lined with determination. They had had enough of Akoswa's tyranny, enough of her prideful ways that had brought nothing but suffering and despair to their once prosperous village. Under the cover of darkness, they hatched a plan to rid themselves of the prideful queen once and for all. They moved like shadows through the night, their steps silent, their hearts pounding with both fear and resolve. And when they reached the grand palace where Akoswa lay sleeping, they knew that the time had come to confront the source of their misery. As they burst into the palace, their torches casting flickering shadows on the walls, Akoswa awoke with a start. Her heart raced with fear as she beheld the angry faces of the villagers, their eyes blazing with defiance. The king, too, stood among them, his gaze cold and unyielding. "You have ruled over us with an iron fist, Queen Akoswa," one of the villagers spoke, his voice filled with righteous anger. "Your pride has blinded you to the suffering you have inflicted upon us. But no longer shall we cower in fear before you." Akoswa's pride crumbled in an instant, replaced by a searing wave of fear and disbelief. She pleaded with the villagers, begged for mercy, promised to mend her ways and atone for her sins. But her words fell on deaf ears, for the villagers had made up their minds. They seized her, binding her hands with rough ropes and dragging her out into the stormy night. The wind howled and the rain beat down upon them, a foreboding and fitting backdrop to the final act of Akoswa's reign. They marched her through the village, the chains of her pride now broken, her once radiant beauty now marred by tears and dirt. The villagers' anger simmered beneath the surface, fueled by years of oppression and suffering. The queen, who had once held them in thrall with her charm and wealth, was now nothing but a pitiful figure, stripped of her power and prestige. At the center of the village stood a towering baobab tree, its branches reaching towards the stormy sky like gnarled fingers of fate. It was here that the villagers brought Akoswa, their faces grim and resolute. They tied her to the trunk of the tree, the ropes cutting into her skin, the rain washing away the remnants of her former glory. As the villagers stepped back, leaving her alone with her thoughts and her fears, a hush fell over the village. The winds whispered through the trees, carrying with them the echoes of a once proud queen's downfall. Akoswa's heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She knew that this was the end, that her pride had led her to this fateful moment. And then, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the villagers raised their voices in unison. They chanted ancient words of power and justice, their voices blending with the rustling of the leaves and the pounding of the rain. The baobab tree seemed to shiver with anticipation, as if it too awaited the final chapter of Akoswa's story. With a thunderous crack, the tree split open, revealing a yawning chasm that seemed to lead to the very depths of the earth. And as the villagers watched, transfixed and awed, Akoswa was consumed by the darkness, her cries echoing through the village as she disappeared from sight. The villagers stood in stunned silence, the rain washing away their tears and their fears. They had rid themselves of the prideful queen, of the tyranny that had plagued their lives for so long. And as they turned away from the tree, their faces turned towards the rising sun, they knew that a new chapter had begun for their village. In the wake of Akoswa's downfall, the village blossomed once more. The fields returned to their former lushness, the cattle grew strong and healthy, and the villagers worked together in harmony and unity. The king, freed from Akoswa's influence, ruled with wisdom and fairness, listening to the voices of his people and striving to create a better future for all. As for Akoswa, her fate remained a mystery, a cautionary tale whispered around the fireside on stormy nights. Some said that she had been swallowed by the earth, her pride consuming her in the darkness of the baobab tree. Others claimed that she had been reborn, humbled and transformed by her ordeal, wandering the world in search of redemption. And so, the story of the prideful queen faded into legend, a tale of arrogance and hubris that served as a warning to all who dared to let their pride blind them to the consequences of their actions. The villagers, their hearts filled with gratitude and hope, faced the future with courage and resilience, knowing that they had overcome the darkness that had threatened to consume them. And as the years passed and the seasons turned, the tale of Queen Akoswa and the village that cast off her yoke continued to be told, a reminder of the power of unity, humility, and the enduring spirit of the human heart. The end.